Shonen anime is a massive genre, and it always has been. Something about watching people punch, kick, shoot, or use magic on each other plugs into a primal part of our brains. But just like every genre as large as shonen, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You have the classics that people love like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or Hunter x Hunter, but unfortunately you also have shows like Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, as well as today's topic, Sword Art Online. This show was all the rage when it came out in 2012, and I remember hearing about it non-stop for years. I didn't watch it until 2015, and at the time I actually really liked it. It was a show for gamers like me. Wouldn't fully immersive VR be so cool? Man, I sure love video games. God forbid I look into this show further than its general concept. If you're not all that familiar with SAO, let me break down the general idea. There's this kid named Kazuto, but his gamer name is Kirito, and he's a big fan of the newest VR technology. There's a new game called Sword Art Online that Kirito was a beta tester for, and he is oh so excited to play the final product. But when he logs in, he realizes, uh-oh, where's the logout button? Turns out there is no logout button, and the creator of the game, Akihiko Kayaba, my favorite name ever, by the way, has actually trapped all 10,000 players in this virtual world, and they can never leave it, unless they clear all 100 floors of the game's dungeon. If anyone tries to remove their headset in real life, their Valve Index will microwave their brain, so good luck, kiddos. Oh, and if they die in the game, they die in real life. And I gotta say, 10 years later, I still find this idea very cool. The problem is that the concept of the show is unfortunately the best part of the whole thing. I'll tell you why I think so in just a moment, but first I have to do that annoying YouTuber thing. I don't want to waste your time, so I'll be real quick about it. If you enjoy this video, like it. If you have something to say about this video, whether I'm wrong or stupid or cringe, go ahead and comment on this video. I also just appreciate general feedback. And overall, if you like this video enough to like it, I don't think it would be a hard sell to ask you to subscribe as well. Now, if everyone is ready, let's get started. This video will be covering the first half of SAO, as in the only part of the show that actually takes place in the game it's named after. If this one does okay, I'll talk about the second half in another video, but for now, we're focusing on what most people would call the best part of the show. That's if you're not counting like the other spin-off series or the movie or any of that bullshit. So the question is the best part of the show even good to begin with? To answer that question, we first have to talk about the show's writing. Oh, and spoilers ahead. Now, every now and then throughout this video, we're gonna take a break from analyzing the show from my perspective and ask some other people that grew up with it what they think about the show. I did a little bit of an interview with some friends of mine, so every now and then it's gonna cut in, don't be alarmed, those are real human beings, and let's hop in right about now. I have here 10 questions about the show Sword Art Online. How old were you when you first watched SAO?
14.
Probably like 14.
I was 12 years old and I said SAO sucks.
Really? When you first watched it, did you like it?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the stuff when they're in SAO is actually kind of alright. It's just after that, it kind of just went downhill.
It has a charm just because it's connected to my childhood, like the first anime I ever watched.
Right.
But after watching some other ones, it doesn't really hold up.
So I'm like, all right, maybe I should finish SAO. So then I watched it then when I was around like 17 or 18. And I said, damn, this show sucks.
So the follow-up was, did you like it? But I think that answers that. If you ask me, writing is the most important part of almost any show or movie. And, okay, if I'm being honest here, SAO's writing is fucking terrible. I think the biggest reason for this is that the show doesn't remotely take its time with a single part of the story. If we spent all 25 episodes of this season in the game of Sword Art Online instead of just 14, I think it would have been significantly better. Everything that happens in this story has to get rushed through so Kirito can run into a new problem, get even more overpowered, and meet a new girl that has a crush on him, and sometimes it's all three at once. Because of this recklessly fast pacing, nothing in the story has any weight to it whatsoever. To show you what I mean, let's take a look at episode 3. The episode starts on Kirito hanging out with a small guild he just saved named the Moonlit Black Cats. This guild is entirely made up of people that all go to school together and are friends in real life. They're all around level 20, while Kirito is level 40, but he lies to them and says his level is about the same as theirs. The show never explicitly explicitly states why Kirito lies about this, but it's probably because if they knew the truth, he wouldn't be able to join their guild. Or because they'd realize he's a beater or something, I don't really know. If I'm being charitable to the show, it might have been so he could have some friends or something, but regardless, he lies and joins them anyway. As the episode goes on, you don't really get to know any of the guild members very well, except for this girl named Sachi. And even with her, I wouldn't say you get much to work with. Basically, she's depressed because she feels useless compared to her teammates, and she's fighting the urge to just go live on the first floor and get away from all the action. It's also implied that she'd be okay with dying, because Kirito thinks she's talking about killing herself at one point, and she says she wasn't, but also that would be okay too. Her and Kirito sleep in the same bed one night, and you can tell she's definitely crushing on him because basically every girl does in this whole ass show. So they have a bond, I guess, whatever. Turns out they've been saving some gold and are finally ready to buy a house for the guild to all live in. Yippee! So while the leader goes to buy the house, the others go into a lower floor dungeon to grind a little bit, and they end up getting triggered by a very obvious trap. And then a bunch of dwarf monsters storm in and murder everyone right in front of Kirito's eyes, including a very dramatic slow motion death for Sachi because she was the only one with even a little bit of screen time. Kirito tells the leader what happened since he was out buying a house at the time, and that guy just fucking kills himself. Turns out this trap was only triggered because Kirito is at such a high level, which results in him being riddled with guilt and shutting himself off from people. Sounds pretty tragic, right? Like a heartbreaking moment of guilt and sorrow for our main protagonist? Well, it certainly could have been if this didn't all happen within the first 13 minutes of the episode. Even if this had happened over the course of one entire 22-minute episode, it still wouldn't have hit that hard because we just fucking met these people. Why the hell do I care about them? I don't know anything about them. Maybe it's just supposed to make us feel sad for Kirito, but here's the thing, we don't know anything about Kirito either. So much shit happens in the first 2 episodes that there's nowhere near enough time to establish who he is or give us an idea of his character traits. I guess he's nice? Like, he helps Klein in episode 1 and gives Asuna some food in episode 2, but being nice isn't enough for me to care about him. Imagine if this had been its own mini-arc over the course of 3 or so episodes. You have an episode to introduce the guild and establish their dynamic with Kirito, an episode for them to go on a mission together and get a closer bond, and then in the 3rd episode, the trap comes out of nowhere and kills them all unexpectedly. This would give us time to get attached to the characters and simultaneously use them as a tool to develop Kirito without it feeling as forced as it does in this episode. But instead, when it happens and they all die, you're just sitting there like, oh, they died? Bummer. The second half of this episode should have been its own thing as well. It shows Kirito dealing with the guilt of their deaths as he searches for an item that can allegedly revive a player that died, which if Kirito took 1 second to think about, doesn't make any fucking sense. Do you really think you're gonna bring your friend that died weeks ago back to life? That would mean bringing them back to life in the real world too. This game isn't fucking magic. It can't revive the dead. And yet they expect us to believe Kirito is such a genius later. It's pretty laughable, to be honest. He does get the item though, and as it turns out, it can revive people, but only within 10 seconds of them dying, which makes way more sense. I don't know how Kirito expected anything better than that. Maybe it's just supposed to be because he's so sad he isn't being logical. It's not really developed, so I don't know. And then after that, he goes back to his room at an inn, and he gets a message from Sachi that she recorded before she died. And I can tell this is supposed to be sad, but Sachi means nothing to me, so I couldn't care less. Maybe she could have, but you know, 0 time. And don't get me wrong, these problems are not exclusive to this episode. It's a problem with the entire show. By episode 5 of the show, almost 2 real-life years have passed. That is 2 years in less than 2 hours. Think of everything they could have done with 2 years of story in this pretty unique world with a fairly unique idea. We never learn anything interesting about the game either, unless it directly has to do with the plot of an episode. So I'm just stuck here wondering why the show was made this way at all. There's not enough world building, barely any character development, none of the emotional moments of the show really work, and all of this is because the pacing is way too fucking fast. Believe it or not, there are actually a couple 2-parters in this show, but even those are super underwhelming. One of them is a player murder mystery that Kirito and his cool girlfriend Asuna decide to solve. They establish how player combat works in an earlier episode, but they add a little more context in this one. Basically, if you're out in the woods or something, players can attack or kill each other all they want, but their little sim diamond changes color so people know that they did a crime. The only way players can fight each other in a safe zone, like a town, is if they agree to a mutual duel, which typically isn't instant to the death. But it can be, I think. Early in this episode, Asuna falls asleep outside and Kirito watches over her because apparently people can force sleeping players into a duel by using their finger without them knowing. Okay, so they've given us some information about the subject. How does it tie into the mystery? Well, as it turns out, it doesn't. Not to get into the nitty-gritty details because it's really drawn out and kind of boring, but all the deaths in this mystery were faked. See, when an item breaks, there's an animation very similar to the one that happens when a player dies. So these guys were timing their armor breaking to match when they supposedly died and teleporting away at just the right moment so it seemed like they were dead. But the thing is, to teleport, you need a teleportation crystal. And every time we've seen a teleportation crystal used in this show, the player has it in their hand and says out loud where they want to go. Every single time. Never once do they even hint that teleporting otherwise would be possible, and they never do it in the future either. It only happens in this episode so they can subvert our expectations. Mystery plots are fun and interesting when the audience has just as much information as the characters trying to solve it. Look at any decent mystery story like Knives Out or half of David Fincher's catalog. They all give you the pieces to the puzzle, and even if you don't figure it out on your own, you probably could have. I was watching this episode with my roommate for this video, and he did call out the twist before it happened, but we both agree that it still made no goddamn sense. The only reason he thought that could have been the answer was because nothing else could have. The writing in this show is super rushed. The plots are generic and unoriginal, and even when they do spend a little bit of time on something, it still manages to fall flat. Who was your favorite character?
Kirito, bro. Like, I have his sword right behind me.
That's true. You do.
Like,
Yeah,
I literally
this guy's
have
a
his
real
sword.
fan.
Like I literally watched the anime, went to Comic-Con and was like, I bought a sword. It was like $150 too, and I was like 15 when I bought it.
Damn,
all
that's
the
like
money
your
I had.
that's your whole shit. Any runner-ups?
No.
I mean, Kirito's the GOAT.
Yeah.
He is the GOAT. He's goated with the sauce.
We're 2 for 2 on that answer so far.
Well, the thing is, I can't think of anyone but Kirito and Asuna.
Okay, fair.
They're all just so forgettable.
There was a Klein, like the redhead scruffy man.
Oh, I kind of
Eagle?
remember liking that like fairy child AI kid they had.
Oh, Yui?
Yeah, I thought she like wasn't a terrible character. I don't know.
She was weird.
Yeah, I'm looking through characters and none of them are ringing a bell.
That's what I assumed would happen. Not many are very good. Most of them are very
Yeah.
forgettable. If we're talking named characters who show up for longer than 10 seconds, this show actually doesn't have that many. You got Kirito, Asuna, Klein, Egil, a bunch of girls that have a crush on Kirito but never really show up again, this guy who wants to kill Kirito, and Heathcliff, the talking orange cat, Heathcliff, the leader of Asuna's guild. And I'm gonna be honest, most of them are mind-numbingly generic, including our protagonist, but we'll talk about him in a second. I've already made it pretty clear that this show has god-awful pacing, and it's not just the plot that suffers for it. None of the characters in this show get remotely enough screen time or character development. They might as well be fucking NPCs. The only one who kind of has a character arc is Asuna. So let's talk about her real quick. Asuna is Kirito's love interest. They party up together for the fight against the first boss, and then by the time we see her again, almost 2 years have gone by. I'm not exaggerating, you can check for yourself. We meet her in episode 2, which is in the year 2022, and by the time we see her again, 3 episodes later, they are in the year 2024. That is fucking insane. But regardless, taking that in stride, she does seem to have grown a bit since her first appearance. She was so inexperienced in episode 2 that she couldn't even read Kirito's name floating right in front of her face. But in episode 5, she's become way stronger and even ascended to vice commander in the top guild. Which is cool and all, but it would have been cooler to see her get there over time throughout a well-paced story. You get it, the pacing sucks. Anyway, she's been taking her job on the front lines very seriously during her time in SAO, so when she sees Kirito lounging around in the grass one day, she gets upset. She says he's wasting his time, but he counters by pointing out that it's SAO's best season and it'd be more of a waste to go in a dungeon on a day like this. This is the first cute interaction they have together, and Asuna decides to indulge in some relaxation and falls asleep in the grass. I think it's a little odd that it'd take her years to notice how pretty this world is, but it makes a little more sense from the context we get later. In one of the last episodes of this arc, Asuna talks about how she had been laser focused focused on getting out of SAO and how every day in the game felt like she was losing a day in the real world. But all of that started to change after this moment with Kirito. She observes how Kirito wasn't losing days in the real world like she was, he was gaining days in SAO and truly living them. And I gotta say, it feels weird to speak positively about this show, but I do appreciate this monologue she has. It makes her seem just a bit like more of a real character and even gives Kirito a tiny bit of charm by proxy. Unfortunately, aside from that monologue and a couple of solid moments here and there, Asuna's character quickly devolves into Kirito's girlfriend, which, if I'm being honest here, the romance between the two of them is one of the better parts of the show. But that's mostly because it has more time spent on it than pretty much anything else, which isn't inherently an issue, but they don't exactly use the time they share to make the relationship very deep or anything. What I mean is that their relationship works because they have immediate chemistry after the time skip and their interactions are cute. But as soon as they tie the knot, yes, they get married. They start to completely revolve around each other as characters, which, once again, isn't a problem on its own, but we don't get enough character development from these two outside of their relationship, despite Kirito being in every single episode. So yes, I will begrudgingly call Asuna the best character because they did my boy Klein dirty, but what about the guy we have to look at for 80% of the show? Well, Kirito, he's a guy, and he's strong. I don't know what else you want me to say. Can you name any character traits that Kirito has? Describe him as a person to me.
I think he's super persistent. He's got a lot of perseverance. He just keeps on.
Okay.
He keeps on going. Cool sword guy.
Yeah.
Video game. Or in an anime, like in a video game, in an anime, cool sword guy. There's no arc. Like he never like has to redeem himself, or there's no like redemption, or like I mean I guess there's a struggle, but I don't know. I don't think he really has a lot of like character traits that you can really like identify with, and like he just like me for real. There's no like he just like me for real moment in that show.
Yeah, as opposed to Guts, where you're like, oh,
he's just like me for real. Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Main character number 1.
Yep.
That's who he is. He's like the cool guy that all the women want. That's about it.
Yeah.
He's really just the guy.
Not too deep a
No.
character.
No, he's just the guy, and he knows how the game works.
He's a loner, and he's very good at video games, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Because the guy who wrote SAO has never played a video game.
I've sat here for quite a while trying to think about who Kirito is as a character. What are his traits? What are his motivations? What is his thematic purpose in this story? Well, all three can be answered pretty much the same way. Relax, I'm only kind of kidding. He really is a dull motherfucker though. If I had to describe him for 80% of my grade, I would say he's a fairly relaxed super nerd who really loves his girlfriend and wants to beat SAO so he can free her from it. He's kind of people. He is strong because he's the main character, I guess. It's shown very often that Kirito has a sort of obsession with Akihiko Kaiba, the creator of the game. He read this dude's biographies and watched all his interviews. Kirito stans Kaiba. And this obsession he has is, I guess, the reason that he becomes so powerful so quickly. Realistically, somebody else should be this big of a fan, if not more. But even if not, that shouldn't be enough for him to get as strong as he does as quickly as he does. But he was a beta tester and got farther than everyone else did in the beta, but that isn't really explained either, so I don't know. I despise using this term in most cases, but Kirito is honestly just a Mary Sue. He's the one player in the entire game that unlocks the ability to dual wield, and how does he do this? Well, later in the show, Kaiba explains that the dual wield ability was given to the player with the fastest reflexes, whatever the fuck that means. I don't feel anything about that revelation. It's very stupid. In fact, it's so stupid that I don't know how I feel about it. But aside from all that, he is just overall the least personable character in the entire show. Even the nothing characters who show up just to hate him or crush on him have more personality than he does over the whole course of the show. He is the epitome of generic action protagonist. He fucking sucks. Aside from those main characters, I've already mentioned Klein. Why do I like Klein so much? He's just a fucking sweetheart. He's so chill and nice. I just want to hang out with him and play some video games. Egil is also cool. He runs a shop on one of the lower floors, and it's mentioned pretty briefly in the last episode that he used most of his money to help out lower level players, and that's just pretty wholesome. Oh, and one more thing. What the hell is up with the Yui plotline? Asuna and Kirito stumble upon a random girl in the woods, and she just becomes their daughter after like 30 seconds of her waking up. And then it turns out she's one of SAO's computer programs. Like, there's an SAI. Fuck. SAI? There is an AI in SAO so advanced that it may as well be a person, and she's only used to be a daughter for the main couple and die in the like second episode that she's introduced. I don't want to get in depth with it, I just wanted to mention how stupid I think it is, which is to say, very stupid. What is your favorite part of the show that you can remember?
As soon as he did that thing with the dual wield, I was like, man, this guy's it. This is my favorite character. Like, he's like, he beats Goku.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put Goku in a virtual world, Kirito will win.
I mean, I liked when he just like was broken and would just whip things ass with 2 swords.
Hell yeah.
That's his whole deal is that he fights with 2 sword.
The one dual wielder out of 6,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if they just like, didn't know they could do that or if he was just goated.
Probably the very beginning. We were
Okay.
like, oh shit,
I think the pilot is strong.
this is cool. And probably that date episode I mentioned, where there's a whole episode of just Kirito and Asuna going on a date. And I think, like, throughout the whole ups and downs, I was like, damn, this show sucks. But then I watched that episode and I was like, oh, that wasn't bad. I like that.
Oh, that's different. The other 2 boys have said like the dual wield moment and shit, like the cool epic hype moment.
But also, that one part where the creator of the game reveals himself.
Yeah, I do like that part.
I thought that was kind of cool. And then, Kirito ass pulls and dodges death or some shit.
Those first 14 episodes, do you remember how that arc ends?
He's like, they like don't even get to the top, right?
No.
He like figures out that the leader guy is the creator,
Right.
and then he fucking kills him.
Yeah, yep.
He just
And
kills his
actually,
ass.
it's, dude, I just rewatched it. The creator guy kills Kirito because
But
Asuna...
Kirito's like, nah, this is crazy.
Yeah, he turns into like a ghost. Like, he becomes translucent for no reason. And then he just stabs him.
I remember a guy, some dude in like, was it like red armor, or like white, like, I don't know, it was like Crusader looking armor.
Yeah.
And they were, I don't know, was he part of the guild or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
They were fighting a boss or whatever, and he was like, oh, I'm the creator all along. And then they fought or something.
Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the ending of this arc and why I kinda like it, but it also sucks. Basically, Kirito and Asuna are on their honeymoon when they get a call from Heathcliff, Heathcliff, the guild leader. He's like, yo, this new boss is crazy. We already lost 10 people to this thing and we need all the help we can get. So they decide to help fight the boss alongside their guild, and Klein and Egil even joins, so that's cool. And it turns out this boss is a giant centipede demon. And if you've ever played Dark Souls, you know the pain they're about to feel.
Man, this shit sucks! How are you not? Man, this shit sucks, dude.
It does. It fucking does. The fight against this boss is actually pretty sick. It might be my favorite boss fight out of the 3 to 5 we see, depending on your definition. When the smoke clears and the centipede man is dead, they've lost way more people than they expected, and morale is pretty low. But then Kirito's looking at Heathcliff, and he's like, isn't that guy supposed to be an orange cat? He thinks this guy looks a little sus. And he's right. When he tries to hit Heathcliff, the game tells him he's an immortal object, which should not be the case for any player. As it turns out, Heathcliff is actually Kaiba playing the game himself. Kirito points out that he knew Kaiba wouldn't want to watch from the shadows, he would want to play in the game as well, but of course, Kaiba is cheating just a little bit. It's then revealed that Kaiba was going to be the final boss on the 100th floor, and after paralyzing everyone else in the room, he decides to offer Kirito a deal. Beat him one-on-one right here and now, and Kirito will have beat the game, freeing everyone from SAO. Kirito, of course, is like, okay, bet, despite his wife crying for him not to do it. And so they fight, and Kirito goes sicko mode on him, but when he slips up just once, it looks like it's all over. Except Asuna somehow breaks the game's paralysis, which is never explained, and she jumps in front of Kirito to sacrifice herself. Kirito, after watching his wife die in front of him, then basically gives up, and Heathcliff stabs him, reducing his health to 0. Except, for some unexplainable, totally bullshit reason, Kirito thinks about Asuna and becomes a fucking ghost, I guess, and just stabs Heathcliff anyway, winning the game for everyone, despite the fact that he should have lost. All in all, Pretty lame way to do it, but it's kind of cool to watch for the first time, I guess. And then Kirito and Asuna get teleported into the sky above the world of SAO and talk to Akihiko Kayaba as the world he created crumbles below him. And for some reason I can't exactly explain, this scene has always stuck with me. Aside from the logic-breaking way Kirito wins the fight, I've always thought the ending of this arc was really well done. It could have been a million times better if the show actually had more substance, heart, or overall time and depth, but even with the lackluster sequence of events that precedes this ending, it's executed pretty well. Kirito, Asuna, and Kayaba talk to each other almost as equals in what they all believe are their final moments, which is only true for Kayaba, but it's a weirdly nice, bite-sized philosophical moment in a show that is otherwise pretty fucking garbage. And then, as the world of SAO ends, Kirito wakes up back in the real world, and the episode ends with a long shot of him walking slowly down the hallway, unsure of what's ahead of him. So yeah, if I'm being honest here, I think the ending might be the best part of the whole show. The last 2 episodes of this arc are totally fine. I think they're the best this show has to offer other than maybe episode 9, which you might remember as the episode where Kirito dual wields for the first time. But even with these decent highlights, and as much as I like to find the good things in what I watch, there isn't much else I can say positively about this show. It's rushed, sloppy, and overall underbaked. And unfortunately, it only gets worse from here. So over the last straight up question, if you had to give this show a number score based on how you feel and what you remember, what would you give it?
5.
Okay.
Or a 4.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. 5 or a 4.
We doing letterbox the 5 or 10?
Up to you.
Shit, dude. All right, I'm gonna go out of 10. All nostalgia aside, probably a 4.
A 4?
Probably a 4. Yeah.
Okay.
Now or when I watched it?
Just your general feelings on it.
Oh, probably like a 5 out of 10.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's horrible. I just think it's just not good.
Yeah, that does sum
Yeah.
it up. Yeah, I would give it about the same, probably.
Yeah.
4 or 5. Not great.
I haven't really had many things that I've seen that are below a 5. But that's just because I
Fair.
pick things that aren't awful.
Yeah. Watch, if you want to hit that, watch The Kissing Booth 3.
I've heard you mention the Kissing Booth so many times.
Dude, it's a
And I have
curse.
no
It's a
clue what it is.
It stole hours of my life, that fucking series, bro. I will never get them back.
And they have sex in the game, which is crazy. That's so crazy.
And the light novel that the show's based on has a detailed sex scene.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, and there's a line in
That's
it
hype.
that was a very big meme in the anime community at the time. And the line is 2 years of semen condensed into one moment.
What?
Yeah, I could be butchering the end, but the 2 years of
That's
semen is a real...
Great.
2 years of semen made a glopping noise as it flowed endlessly into Asuna.
That's like art, really. I'd probably frame that on my wall.
Yeah, it's a
So
a
do
real
you
thing.
think he nutted in the hospital bed?
Ooh, that's the question.
Like
Yes.
So he nut in the game.
Right.
If you nut in the game, do you nut in real life?
There it is, baby.
Oh shit.
Oh, shit.
Damn, there it is.
Ooh.
Is that thing rusted?
This is his sword, right?
Yeah.